So let's build the power on and off button for our handle. And because we are currently constructing this vacuum using the symmetry function of our layers, we also only have to create half of that power button. So to do this, we can go into like a top view and then double click the cylinder. And here I type in 180 degrees because I only would like to have one half of a cylinder sweep, and 180 is half of 360. Spans, like with the circles, I set to 4. I would like to have less geometry points to work with. And caps I set to 0 because we don't need any top and bottom cap. Then you can click on Go. And I'm going to press Alt key, and then click somewhere close to the x-axis so my cylinder is perfectly lined up to the wall center. Of course, as you can see, it is rotated. So we can go into object mode, select the object, go to rotate, and then we see upper part here, it says enter rotational modes X, Y, and Z. And along the Z-axis, I would like to rotate my geometry by 180 degrees. So I could type in, for example, 0, 0, 180. So the first 0 is for X, the second 0 is for Y, and then 180 is for the Z-axis. And press enter. And there you can see that my cylinder got rotated. Now the scale is a little bit off. I can click on scale, in case Alias allows me to. And then with the left mouse button, maybe scale it to size, maybe something like this. Like this will be good. Let's go into side view. Okay. Then maybe I can move actually this button to maybe there. And then because I'm going to rotate that button soon, I'm turning on my local orientation. And then with my middle mouse button, I'm going to rotate the button, and then right mouse button start sinking it into the surface. Maybe middle mouse button, move it a little bit to the right. And yeah, could maybe just a small notch rotate it to the left. Okay, so something like this. That is good. At this point, the alias tutorial is actually suggesting to copy and paste those two surfaces onto a new layer. So you could create the button, and while that will result into a physically correct surface, however, the problem is through copy and paste, you are losing your construction history. And what's the point of working with a parametric software when you are breaking your ability to modify your surfaces later by, for example, the curves which are used to generate those surfaces? So what I actually instead would promote is an approach that rebuilds the surfaces. For example, the button could be recreated with an offset surface, and the surface for the handle or the vacuum, we basically just build again just with the rail tool and just put it on a second layer. So let's do this. I'm going to select the surface for the button, and then I go to Object Edit, Offset, make sure that it offsets into the center part, and I adjust the distance a little bit because you want only a very small tolerance, otherwise the button would wiggle too much. Offset, okay. And then I'm going to select my offset surface. I'm going to create a new layer. Call this one button. And then this surface I just assign to the button layer. Now I'm going to recreate the surface for my vacuum, and I need to have 2 generation curves and 1 rail curve. Okay, so here's generation 1, generation 2, and this is my rail curve. And then this surface I also assign to the button layer. And the next step would be to start creating the fillets. If you double click the fillet tool, I entered in a radius of 2. And then I can select my first surface, my second surface, and my arrows have to face into the volume of the object. I'm going to create a button, and that means the magenta arrow has to face inside the cylinder, because that would be the volume of our button. If it would face away from the cylinder, then basically we would create a fillet for the vacuum, because everything outside that cylinder would be the volume. So click build. So there's now our button. Then we can go to surfaces and basically do the same. You also notice that I did not use the intersect tool to create the different intersection curves and then trim it. Essentially, the surface tool is doing those 2 commands on the fly for you already, so you can save that step. So if I click on it again, select the surface and select this surface. Now this time, for example, I would like, as you can see, the magenta arrow to face away from the cylinder, so it points to the volume of your vacuum. And click build. And there's basically now our second object. And then if I turn on the button, you can see how it nicely fits in. And let's test our theory. Let's select the CV point, and as you can see, the CV point selected makes the top surfaces, so my surface of my handle and the surface of my button, magenta. So they are still in construction history relationship, and the fillets are highlighted. And if I now go to move, and maybe move this point down a little bit, let's say to there, everything should update. So you see that just with one adjustment of the side profile curve, I changed the surface of my vacuum, the surface of my button, and also readjusted the correct fillets for them. And that's the whole point actually for having a construction history and the ability to model parametric.